thank you to our 3 sponsors for supporting our podcast. Johnny Russell's Art Caterers and Milltown Pies, who offer fantastic catering services, Alexander Grace Law, who provide modern and client-led legal services, and SBE Furnishings, who offer high-quality furnishings and electrical items at fantastic prices.
Gary, I'm loving your background.
You like it?
Yeah, that is quality. Yeah, look at that.
That's class.
Yeah, class. The Lowerhouse badge in all its glory and fantastic colours.
Yeah, and all the stars.
Yeah, all the stars are there at the bottom. Loving that, Gaz.
Yeah. And all the stars are here.
Well, that's it. All the stars you 3 earned.
I really like the headset as well, Gaz. It's like Britney Spears.
I know.
In the early 2000s.
I've worked from home since 23rd of March now, and I'm gradually getting up kit together.
It's good time to go back.
Yeah. Oh, Lord.
Order! Send more house to save the house! Come on, the house!
Welcome to the Housecast, everyone. Been a while since, certainly for me, spoke to most of the guys here, so we'll just have a quick fly around and catch up. Mr. Beneduce, how's things? How's it
Very
going?
well, thank you. Very well. Just saying there, really enjoying Higgy's podcast, but I'm sure tonight's guest will rival it for stories. I'm sure he will.
Indeed. Anything keeping you busy lately? Are you keeping your head down?
Happy that Boris has said we can play golf again, so I'll be playing a bit of golf, but not much else, Gaz, now.
And what about you, Joe M?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
I'm glad you made it.
Yeah. Very hectic day. Jez will testify to that. He knows the inner workings of the busyness of the civil service. But yeah, no, very well. I made some quesadillas for tea. So,
wow.
So that was grand. I haven't done much else actually. It's very typical. I've been running. I went to M&S last night. That's like a highlight of my week.
M&S, living it up.
Well, I mean, there's lots of stories. I mean, well, geez. Do you know when I was at university? Obviously I don't drink, and I never went out or anything. And that was also the highlight. I used to go to M&S on a Monday. That was my day out.
Is that when they sell all weekend stuff off cheap?
Yeah, I used to get some white chocolate buttons for like 50p, down from 250.
Excellent. And the one and only legend that is Mr. Jeremy Hope.
Hiya, Gary. Nice to see you again. It's been a while. Let's even get a few more of these going. And fantastic background for the listeners. Gary's got his own Lowerhouse badge background, stars on it, numbers on it. It's all colourful. It looks fantastic, Gaz. Not been up to a great deal, really. I'm doing a little bit of work for a company, doing lots of walking with my little dog, and just enjoying a bit of time here on my own with, Lisa's working from home, but started brewing some home brew with me, Nicky, and a lad from Doncaster. So we're having a laugh with that.
Oh, wow. Wow, any particular, is that part of it, Jez? Is that an early session?
Nice little brown ale that's just maturing.
Wow. Cheers. Have you got names for any of these brews?
Yeah. I started off, first one we'll call Frey Bentos.
Go on.
Just fair.
I have a copyright issue with that, Jez, I think.
I'm not selling it, Joe. Right. That's my first brew. The second brew was Special Branch. Third brew with Tom Brown's brew. So as you can see where it's going with it.
Yeah.
It's driving Nicky mad. It's driving him mad. But no, it's a good crack, Gary, keeping us busy.
Are you seeing much at Grand Lad?
No, very little really, because of lockdown. Adam's doing a sterling job with FaceTime and seeing photographs on there, because we, can't go and see him. That's the rules at the moment. Yeah. Odd occasions, I might just be driving past, and he might just be hanging out at window, and I might just be stood on drive. But it's a complete coincidence, Your Honour.
Indeed, a well-trodden path, that one, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so.
Cool. And before we introduce tonight's guest, I guess just a bit of housekeeping. We've got the sponsors kindly been seeing us through this year on the websites and been announced on previous podcasts. We've come to another round of annual costs to keep the podcast going, various subscription fees for online platforms and where you pick all your podcasts up, etc. They're not free. We do have to find some money from somewhere. So if there's anybody out there who'd like to be part of sponsoring the podcast or knows anybody who knows anybody, etc., then get in touch through the club's website. All the contact details are on there. And I'm sure we can come to some arrangement to helping keep us going and spread your name around our ever burgeoning listener membership. And on that note as well, I think any of the regular listeners got any ideas or any topics you might want to cover, or any particular guests you think we haven't already lined up yet or have on here, then please send your ideas our way, and we'll see what we can do. That brings us on to tonight's guest, who is well known to everybody around the club, I would suggest, and probably a lot of people around the league for various reasons. He's closing in on club stalwart status, coming through the ranks of messing around the ground, being a youngster and tallying, scoring, etc. Then starting to play a bit of cricket, coming through junior teams and third, seconds, and playing quite a bit of first team. Then joining the committees, serving various positions on there. Currently our membership secretary, I believe. So with no further ado, welcome on board for tonight, Mr. Frank Entwistle. Welcome, Frank. How are you doing?
Fine, Gary, yourself?
Yeah, we're all good. We're all good. What's lockdown 2.0 been doing for you?
Lockdown 2.0 is just busy for me. It's been a busy year. Worked all the way through. Days leave, unusual for me, who's normally off on my world travels, but virtually no leave at all. Busy at work, such as local government these days. Wow.
Well, with Boris suggesting no public sector pay rises next year, Frank, you better keep getting that overtime in, mate.
No overtime, Gary.
No overtime either.
No, just doing it for the love of the job, sadly.
Of course, yeah, I'll bet. Well, there's the thing. Right, so Frank, we heard from Chris Blezard on talking about life at St Theodore's, and he did mention a young Francis Martin Entwistle a couple of times, and I think the most polite word he used was pest. Did you know much about Blez during school? Is that how you got the sort of Lowerhouse connection, or was it a completely random, different route down to Lowerhouse?
It was a different route down to Lowerhouse, just around the same time as I first became or knew about Blez. We'd obviously attended the same school, St Theodore's, together. He was at St Mary Mag's previously. I was at Christ the King. But I listened to the recent podcast. His probably description of my scampish behaviour was probably 100% right. They'd play quite a bit of rugby. The big lads in that team were Allison and Hayes, who were bigger than anybody else in Lancashire. Both went on to play for Lancashire, I think. And I used to take great pride and pleasure in trying to do something to wind them two up every lunchtime or every morning break. So Chris's description of scampish was very good, I thought. So
was that just to entertain yourself, Frank, or
yeah, it was
there
just
another reason?
Just something to do.
Yeah.
Just see if they give me a battering or something.
Yeah.
It's a bit like prison where they try and avoid Mr. Big by getting put in hospital.
Well, they didn't do it that badly, Gary, because they knew I was a fairly decent scrum half. So Harrison used to be number 8, and Hazy were a prop. So they both used to look after me when we used to play Saturday afternoon. So
the Lowerhouse route then, if it wasn't sort of through those sort of Nicky and Chris type connections, how did you end up down there?
We played a bit slightly in the first couple of years at Ted's, and then Brian G used to live. Remember Ian G's dad, Brian?
Yeah.
Obviously Matt Walker's granddad. Sadly, just recently passed. Brian used to live on Scott Park Road. Bush was on Scott Park Road. Roger Brom was at the back of us. I was there. There was quite a few. Barry Bromley was in there. There's quite a lot. There was a big backstreet cricket game on Pritchard Street, Raglan Road. So most evenings the bigger lads would be out playing that, and the younger ones, we'd all be either watching or fagging the ball in somebody's garden. So once we got a little bit older, we'd play out there. Brian would come out and play even sometimes, and Ian was just slightly younger than me. But I think Ian was doing a lot more cricket at school because he was Shane's age, Shane Prock, Andy Emme, or Dave Allen, people like that. So then one evening, I think just one Wednesday night, Brian said, "Do you want to come down Lowerhouse?" So earlier on in season, I think in April that year, probably 1981 that would have been. He took me down Lowerhouse, so that would have been Jimmy's second year. And suddenly we were going down. It wasn't much organised then. Brian did a bit. Bomber was obviously there, Jez's dad. And I think probably that first year, Bill Holt was doing quite a bit as well. Maybe that first or second year. So Brian G was the person who got me down to Lowerhouse, and then I probably never left. And I've never been away for much longer.
Yeah. So did you just were turning up at juniors evenings, or did you go play in any junior teams? And I did that fare.
I was young for Blaise was I think Blaise is July, so I was like my birthday was August, so I used to, and I was quite small, so I could get away with being 14 and playing under 13s. So Ian G, Proc, Dave Allen, Shane and such forth were year below me, or maybe even 2 years younger than me, and I played that year with them in that age group. So we cheated a bit that year. I think that was Bomber's idea, but.
Oh, way. No way.
Well, Frank, you say you was quite small. Your Lancashire League profile, I'm looking at it, says weight 15 stone.
We're talking when I was 12 and 13, Gary.
I think you were born 50, so I've only ever known you that size. I was tiny.
I was tiny, honestly.
Yeah.
Tiny till about 15, 16.
So, other than junior cricket, then, I mean, who would have been coaching there? You mentioned Bill Holt. Who else stuck in your memory there?
Just Bill Holt and Bomber. They were a lot more the second year I came down. There was a lot more going on that year. I think they got slightly a bit more organised. Evan came the year afterwards, so he was very interested in helping out. So I think he used to help out as well. So. And then once they got a bit more successful, so people would come down more and more often. So there seemed to be a lot more people around the club at that stage.
Because I think about that time, you also made your presence widely known in the tally box.
Yeah, I think I remember 82. 82 was Evan's year. That was the year I was first tallying. So 81 I came, played a bit of 113s, 82. So I remember Evan's first game, and I remember him getting a hat-trick in the first home game, and I don't know if he got 5 for it, but certainly got a hat-trick to finish the game off. I remember people, probably Clifford, running down to the gate to do a collection, because everybody in those days, there were really good crowds in those days, and I remember everybody used to rush off though to try and avoid the collection, or just get home for the tea perhaps. But yeah.
What sort of stint did you do then, sort of tally? Presumably you were playing junior cricket midweek, and then weekends you'd go and tally him. Was that sort of through like most of the 80s then?
82, 83, 84 I tallied. I did everything, home and first team, second team, third team, whatever I could do for the first 2 years. But I remember Curtis probably second year. I was getting a bit older. I used to go and I'd got a bike. My dad was a keen cyclist, and my dad had got me a bike. And I remember cycling to places like Enfield, Cornway, watching Curtin and College tee off in them games. The Enfield one was amazing, where you turned up for bloody hell, like Lowerhouse of 50 for 4 or something, and then Curtin went ballistic, and suddenly he's just smashing it over the clubhouse. It was incredible to follow Lowerhouse those days.
Yeah, obviously we had Curtin on. We heard quite a few stories with Stan and Iggy and the like about those days. So, I mean, coming through there as a junior with some fairly memorable pros, must have been, was that sort of part of what, made you take to cricket pretty well, or were you actually doing okay playing as well?
I'm not sure I was doing okay, but I think with a lot of youngsters, of the same age. In my opinion, there were a lot better youngsters than me, but there were a lot. I mean, at 16, I went straight into work or YTS, whereas the likes of Shane and people like that, they went on to university. With quite a lot of wicket keepers that time. What was Darren called, Jez?
Darren Taylor.
Darren Taylor, tremendous wicket keeper. People like that who, Stuart Higgin as well, who went on to university, didn't they? We seemed to go through a crop at that stage. So, not that we were left with what we were left with, but I seem to think at that age we had quite a lot of really good, decent teenage cricketers who seemed to have gone to university at that stage.
Okay, so was it early on you wanted to be a wicketkeeper? I thought that was something that came later on, that you just sort of, because I think you did a bit of goalkeeping football-wise as well, didn't you, at some point?
Yeah, well, bowler, I was off spinner when I started off, Gary.
Off spinner, crying out
Under
loud.
13s, under 15s, thirds, yeah, off spinner.
Jesus.
But then I did a little bit of wicket keeping at Ted's, and then I think I just fell into it. It was just the way that we were. I don't know whether people got injured or the likes of Shane went, Stuart, Darren Taylor went to university, and we were just short of. I'd done it before, so you start filling in, and suddenly you've got a wicket keeper batsman perhaps, and then suddenly, I mean, I was lucky in some of them instances that later on that I can't remember ever being sparkling in second 11, but then suddenly in probably late 80s playing first 11. I can't remember getting a lot of runs in second 11, but probably more wicket keeping, more to go in for wicket keeping. I don't know, maybe I'm doing myself down, but I just can't remember getting a lot of runs in second 11 when I was that old. I seem to get a lot of runs later on in second 11.
So you end up time served through late 80s in sort of thirds, seconds, etc. You know, looking down some of the statistics, you make your debut in April 1989. That's obviously quite early on in the season. It's not a Burnley fair, everyone disappears on holiday and seconds all get a game type selection, is it? So, you know, is that something that through nets or early on in the season you were going to get your chance, or was it, you know, was it a bit of a surprise if you were saying you weren't getting many runs?
Probably a surprise, Gary. I got into thirds by default because I was tallying one day and Prop was scoring. Seconds were short, and Pete Mosley were captain, and they needed somebody to go over. I just said I couldn't score, so Prop got left to score. Prop was probably in front of me then on ability, in my opinion. Prop just sat there dumbfounded with his pen in his hand, and I said, well, I've got my gear as well, so Clifford took me over to Bacup, so that's how I ended up making my second team debut. I think I got about 10 that day, and Pete Mosley thought I were all right, so probably didn't get a look in then for the rest of the season. He went right happy.
So do you regularly take your gear to score, to tally?
Just left it there, Joe.
All right, fair enough.
Just left it in the back because you didn't have any kit, you didn't have a bat, you didn't have gloves, you didn't have wick pads around. You just had your whites.
And they're a team kit bag.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which we got put in it a few times.
Must have been a big one. But anyway, so Accrington away, Accrington home comes along. You get picked for that side. What's your thought process as making your first team debut?
No idea, Gary. To be fair, the only thing I do remember getting was my first victim. I remember playing when Mansur was pro. He was a terrific cricketer. Could bat and bowl and field and just nice. But he didn't speak much English at all. But I do remember him bowling up the hill from the corn and catching Gary Hunter just a sliver. And I didn't even appeal that day. It was just in me gloves. Probably Lofty, I think, was at first slip and he appealed and umpire, yeah, that's out. And batsmen used to walk in them days. Gary Hunt won't walk. Gary Hunt,
yeah, well, that's, fair scalp, isn't it? So just looking at that game though, it's quite interesting. There's one or two things there. I just like maybe Jez, you played that day as well. I don't know if you can remember. One thing that jumped straight out to me. I mean, Lowerhouse won for a start, which is great, but Tripp got 5 for.
Off spin.
How did that come about?
Was he captain?
Well, I don't know. I can't see on that page, on that side, who was captain that day.
No, I mean, I'm looking at it myself, Gary. It is coming back to me a little bit, the actual game, because they had Robert Haynes, didn't they, pro, who got 35, and David Lloyd was captain of Accrington.
Yeah, who got him out that day, Jez?
I think you might find I did a bowled in middle stump.
Or another ex-international, not ex, but another big name scalp as well. Never cease.
Middle and leg, middle and off, top
Of course.
Anyway, yeah, it was. I do remember it. I mean, I can't remember. We lost that game, Gary. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, 9 runs. Yeah.
Yeah, we did, and I can't remember why. Because I wasn't bowling a great deal then, but I've bowled 7 overs, and like Frank says, Manzoor, once he was on if the pitch was bowler friendly, you won't want to take Manzoor off. He'd do extremely well. So whether it helped Trip, I don't know, but it's a strange scorecard that, because you look, Brian Holmes, what a fantastic big hitter Brian was, and yet we ended up 9 short with 8 down. It seems a strange scorecard that. Robert Ormerod playing as well, but didn't bowl. And Bumble, 13 overs, 34 for 2. I can't remember playing in it, but I can't remember anything about it. I can't remember Frank making his debut in there. I think back then, Frank, you're right what you say. We talk about the Rugrats, Joe's era, and we talk about, the ones, for myself and older than me, Stan and company, but in that, there was a lot of players in that era that you came through, the Proc and the Higgins, and even I know Chris Whitehead was older than that, but there was a lot of cricketers that came through, which I think it's fair to say didn't really kick on, did they?
That's my memory of that.
Yeah.
Of that era, that we probably had lots of players to be able to play cricket. The second, third 11. We were never short in numbers.
No,
we never had we never seemed to have people that would regularly get runs. That were shouting out for first team places.
Yeah, and I wonder why that was, because they were all typical Lowerhouses, only played at one club, got coached well, all were together as a team. But like you said, no one really kicked on from it. From there. Just an observation about yourself, Frank. I find it amazing that we look back at this era. So how old you have been then in 89?
22.
22. And I can't remember you being daft as a brush then, unless I missed it and you were just being daft with younger ones.
No, I don't think I were, Jez.
No? Right. So let's get it right. You were a St Theodore's, Christ the King boy. Probably went to church then, which all credit to you. Probably not drinking, doing the scores, and having your kit ready for if we're ever short. Is that you in a nutshell?
Yeah, that's probably in a nutshell, Jez. Yeah. Where did it all go wrong?
Yeah,
so I think there were reports of some alien body snatching around that era as well, weren't there? I think.
Yeah, let's wait and see if Gary can tease out of you the day when it all kicked off. Well,
amazing. We'll get there. We'll work it out somehow. Just to get back those early games in the first team, a thing that I just clicked through the first few games, but there was a pattern there that I think the first 6 league games that you played in that season, you batted 5 times, didn't bat another time, and all at number 10, and then the 7th game you were promoted to number 8, got a duck, and then didn't play again for the rest of that season. Is that maybe the body snatching moment?
I think there were other things that were doing that as well, weren't there? So I think around that era, I was playing a lot of football, a lot of futsal. I would have played futsal before I played cricket back then.
Would you?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, trips we were going on.
Oh, of course, you were going overseas, weren't you, and stuff?
Yeah, we were going overseas. You get a call from Peyton, and you'd be training for 3 months, and you could be going to Australia anywhere, Spain, Portugal, all over the place. So.
Really?
Is that where you got a lot of your sort of appetite for travelling, more recently about just what sport through that side? Or
the more recent stuff's probably after. I just got to say, I think we went through that stage where Phil died and a few others died, and my dad and people like that, and they just hadn't done what they wanted to do, and I just made a conscious decision that I don't want to be 65. And retired and start going to places. I want to do it now where I'm fit and able to do it. I've got the money to do it, and I don't want to be 65 trying to, Michelle pushing around in a wheelchair and doing something. It's just a conscious effort to start travelling, really.
So the futsal itself then was just something that you were well into at that time, and it sort of just had more going for it over than the cricket. Simple as that.
If I'm honest, if I was that committed to cricket, maybe that was. Maybe a bit down to ability, or I don't know, maybe just because I was daft as a brush. But futsal, I really did like playing foot. If you remember back then, the Thompson Centre used to have something in the region like 12, 15 leagues. So we had 150 teams. And
you better explain what futsal is, because not everybody will know.
Five-a-side football, effectively five-a-side football, but you're playing inside a court. So in a fixed area rather than being able to play off a wall. Slightly different rules. See it on the continent a lot, in Portugal and Spain mostly. You play with hockey nets. But yeah, so we got into that after playing five-a-side at Burnley. We got into that, and it was for the first 10 years of its life in England, it was centred at Combe. Played up there for me. Yeah.
So was that was like then a big interest? Was it like early 90s? Because you were sort of in and out of first team quite a bit there, and was it regularly disrupted through your summers? You were doing those sort of trips.
I used to pick up a lot of injuries. It was not like five-a-side. Futsal was more contact the way that we played it. Goalkeepers were allowed 5 fouls, and then if you got a card when you'd done your 5 fouls, you could put a substitute keeper in. So we just had some tough cookies playing nets for us, and we just had free for all taking it out. These we played some teams who didn't like our style.
So we get through, and we might come back to that, Frank, because I think there's a couple of tales to be told there.
There's some crackers.
In the early 90s, Jez were captain, etc. Jez, do you ever remember Frank being on a lot of the selection chats at that time?
Without a doubt, Frank had probably matured then, for want of a better word. And those players that we've discussed earlier were clearly not going to get into the first team. And we've discussed it to death, a transitional period of the older players leaving, trying to get the young lads in. And a bit like, other people we spoke about on this podcast, Matt Marquis, and Frank was never an issue in picking him. Some second team players or, were there, they either weren't interested or they were just making the numbers up in the second team. You knew exactly what you got from Frank, exactly what you got. And he was a dangerous cricketer. He could come in and he's capable of winning you a game. His wicket keeping, when he got in the first team, he's got Brian Higgin who's in front of him. And then I don't think it'd be interesting to see what Frank's thoughts are around his wicket keeping. He had a good pair of hands. He could dive around. He was obviously a goalkeeper type wicket keeper, unlike the likes of Joe Martin and these, but he would do a job. I'm sure we'll come on to the numerous nicknames. I mean, I don't know if you remember, Frank, and I don't know if I'm spoiling anyone's thunder here, but we played Bay Cup at home. I was captain at the time, and I was in my grumpy stage when I'm really trying, to get us through games with some help from some of the players. Not maybe getting the help I should be from some of the older players, and we're playing Bay Cup at home, and it's swinging around a little bit, and I can't remember who our pro was. Whether it was, I can't remember who it was. Might have been Cameron, and they're both swinging quite a lot. Frank is struggling a little bit. There's a few that's gone through, hit him on the forearm, hit him on the chest, and they have Bay Cup have the famous spectators, haven't they? Clive of India. And the other ones, and they stunned scorebox. And for some reason, quite a lot on a Bay Cup. There's a lot of people drinking, there's noise from our fans, from their fans. It's all great humour. And for some reason, it's 4th or 5th ball, it's gone through, there's a nick. Frank's gone for it, and I think it's hit him on his shoulder or something. He's nowhere near it. And the ground just goes completely silent. We're all a bit embarrassed, possibly. We're all angry, but Frank's trying his nuts off. He's madder than any of us. And just in the midst of this silence, a Bay Cup accent shouts out, "What do they call your keeper? Greasy Pams?" It just broke the ice for us. We all just started laughing, and Frank got on with it, and and we continued to play the game. You play with him, Gary. I can't reiterate enough. He was a dangerous cricketer, and I can't really put my finger on. I mean, you've got a lot of runs. I've just been looking, Frank. You've a lot of runs there. I think your average could have been a little bit higher. from what you've done, and maybe you could have won more matches, but you certainly could take teams apart, when the circumstances were right. I really did enjoy playing with you.
Just not consistent enough, I think, Jez.
Yeah, but you had that ability, didn't you? You had that ability and you practised.
Yeah, well, I'd say practice, Jez. I mean, we didn't have the net, obviously, facility to have now, but there's something to be said for netting on grass every week. But you were first down, you put the old nets out, and to be fair, my netting was then more about trying to hit one of the windows on the lane, really, not about actually trying to play a forward defensive or a drive. So
yeah,
I'm not so sure that that's my or the ideal cricket practice for the weekend.
Yeah, but in answer to your question, Gary, yeah, Frank was always, the topic of conversation at most selection meetings, just as I'm sure you can vouch. And it's a pity we couldn't get a good run of 2 or 3 seasons with him. He'd be in and out, and then just coming in, filling in. But it was definitely not just a fill-in. He did a good job for Lowerhouse.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that shows sort of through the rest of the 90s. Just looking briefly around the stats there, where there was sort of more consistency in terms of first team appearances, etc. And I think probably it's fair to say Frank suffered because you probably batted in like most positions as well, and you had a good stint late in the 90s or early 2000s where you were opening quite a bit, and then some games you might be like 8-9 or something. And I think it was as a utility player that often they get you fall into that bracket maybe, and I think that probably didn't serve you well that you could nail down a firm higher middle order spot or maybe an opening spot, etc. Are there anything on those early games, Frank? Any tales, any standout memories that you want to regale us with?
What year did you captain when Prabhakar was?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the game at Tomodon?
Yes, I do. Yeah, when he got 105 for.
He did, but I think he must have. I mean, it was the most exceptional piece of bowling I think I've ever seen. I don't know whether. I know Brian Holmes might have been second slip. But Lofty wouldn't have been playing then, would he?
I can't remember. It 91 was that?
No, probably not. So I'm not sure who was first slip, but I remember we went through and Prabhakar was like pitching it leg stump and it was going outside off stump. They were nicking every other ball. Do you know what I mean? And I was probably 2 foot down leg side still looking for that. And Prabhakar was going absolutely mental. And I'm pretty sure you had to calm him down then at that stage. So, but then he went out, like I say, he went out and got a ton afterwards. I think Blaise probably got 15 that game as well. But I think at the end of the day, the slip Gordon and myself had dropped 7 by the end of the day. Prabhakar weren't happy.
He rotated slips, I think, about every 4 overs. We all had to do.
Yeah, it was. I've got it up there, Frank. Yeah, Lofty wasn't playing, but it was. I'm sure we'll all remember it because it was one of those games where Prabhakar really bent his back, tried hard, and the pitch was. Todd's is renowned for a good track, and it's almost as close as you're going to get to first class. Yeah, 20 overs, 53 for 6. And 129, it's not a bad day's performance, that for him.
And Stan got 50.
Yeah, Stan got 50 not out there as well.
Did Blaise get that day? I always thought it was Blaise that got the runs, but it's obviously Stan.
Got 30 odd, exactly 50, batting at 4. Did he bat 4? How long did he bat 4 for? 4. For
4.
Did you run anybody out that day?
There anybody out?
Did you run anybody out that day?
All right. No run outs that day.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I do remember that, Frank. It was a good, a great performance all round from everyone. And that's interesting. Your story, like Gary says, we did used to rotate the slips. It was, you drop 2, you're out, and we just used to go round from slip to gully to point to extra cover, and then right round. Then before you knew where you were back from long leg to slip.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think Dooch always when I played with Dooch, he always used to say that it was pointless having slips. Nobody ever caught any. You might as well put a man on the moon.
We went through a spell of it being a run-saving position. No more. Just a run-saving position, no more. Current first team skipper has got marks all over his chest from trying to catch him in slips.
Fantastic. we get to mid-90s, Frank, and that's what I say. You start to sort of make more regular appearances in first team. There's a few memorable games that I can think of, and I'm sure you can think of a few more, and others will chip in. But we played Rishton back-to-back in 1995, and around that time, it were like Nelson and Aslin. We seemed to play middle of the summer, belting tracks. It were always, you played Nelson 2 weeks on trot, Asley 2 weeks on trot, Bacup, Rishton, somebody like that in middle of July when, maybe you had a couple missing on holiday as well, and we were always ripe for a panning. But Phil Simmons was professional at Rishton, and he'd taken us for a big score or two. And I seem to remember maybe we were at home, we were chasing a fairly big total. We'd lost a couple early on. I think you came in middle order and started to put a bit of a stand on. I don't know whether we were Blaise or something like that, or maybe even Fleggs if he were pro. Can you remember that game at all, Frank?
Yeah, I remember it.
So I think that was that your first Lancashire League 50?
Quite possibly, yes. Yeah, probably was. Yeah, I don't think until the mid 90s I played many. First, I probably only played less than 10 every year. I was either playing football, playing futsal, or watching Clarets, and sadly never finished the season. Just probably did a bit, more of a bit player. But I did play quite a bit those seasons. Yeah, I do remember that game. Yeah. Yeah, they got a bin load. It was the tracks were a lot better, or getting a lot better by that time. I personally think Simmons was a quality pro, wasn't he? He could bat, he could bowl. Rishton weren't a bad side. There's some really decent players. Smithy were probably playing them days.
Russell Davis was playing.
Yeah, decent player. Was Wells captain?
Russell was captain.
Right. Robbie Walsh should have played, won't he? People like that.
Yeah, they won the league a bit, Frank. They were up there. They always had good pros. Some deep damages. The clubhouse was flying, so they could get decent pros, and they were very, very competitive.
That was that Fleggs' first year as well?
No, second, I think.
96.
I think that probably 95.
95, yeah.
So we'd have been doing pretty well because what Fleggs, we all know what Fleggs brought, those that played that era know what Fleggs brought to the club. Brought an enthusiasm, didn't he? And that Australian want to win, you go out, you don't just play to take part. You just get stuck into people. Maybe I think that day I took it a bit too far, but
So talking about that, there's I believe a bit of banter going on. You and Blaise are putting a 100 stand on or something, and whilst 290 odd might be slightly out of our reach, you're having a bit of a go, showing a bit of spine. But I believe there were a bit of banter going on in the middle.
He bounced me a couple of times, I think. So I think I told him if he did it again, I might have threatened him slightly.
Threatened him out. You were gonna hit the ball for six, Frank, or something like that. He
bounced me the first time. I wasn't a great player of bouncers, but I had to do it, and I think I got away with it off the glove or something. And then I give him the stare and probably said a few words to him, which we probably shouldn't repeat over there. And then I think he bolts me the second one. That hit me on the helmet and went straight over the top for 4 leg bites. And I used to smoke in them days.
So hang on, Frank. So not only because Simmons were quick, he was West Indian, fantastic all-rounder that was predominantly a batter, but he was a big lad and he was quick. Yeah. So you're going out to bat, you box on?
Yeah.
iPad?
Yeah.
And your lighter?
What?
Just explain what if for the bowler of it, your lighter.
Yes, it was in my right pocket. It was from.
All right. Oh, that's all right.
So, he thought about it, Jez. The logic behind his decision.
Well, Jez, are you getting a premeditation here? Do you think it was premeditated?
Back then, I'd have a fag in my pocket then. You'd have any breaking play or something like that. They would have a thing. You'd have a fag, no problem at all.
All right. I don't think any of us four would have done, but
Yeah, if you got to drinks break, you'd have a fag.
right.
Different times, different times.
Yeah.
So generally, when I was in first team, I was captain with selection and stuff like that, and really, it was always good that if there was any opportunity we could get under somebody's skin. You know, I don't think it would too difficult to get you or Chippy or somebody just to sort of start the ball rolling. Things went on from there really, and there were enough characters with quick wits and fast tongues in our side who wouldn't take a backward step with any banter that were flying around. So I think you fit in fairly well on that front, Frank, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think it was that era. I wouldn't back down to anybody. I wasn't bothered about who they were and what their reputation were. I just wouldn't back down. So probably more bravado, really. But Franklin Rose was another one. I think he was a year later, perhaps. But we have a bit to do at Franklin Rose, and Matt was crapping himself, saying, "He's going to bowl quick. He's going to bowl quick." And he keeps talking to him. So good crack, good days.
Gordon, send more house to save the house.